and welcome to Chaotic Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticris.com. I am Jason J. Rock Houston. We're speaking to a longtime friend of mine, Carl Canedy, and today, Carl, we're going to be talking about your other band, the 450's. So how long have you been involved with this project?
This has been about a 2-year process from initially thinking about this. We've all been friends for a long time, and then deciding to actually do an album and form a band, and finally it's coming out November 19th. So it's been a while, and COVID didn't help, of course. COVID seemed to put a damper on a lot of things for musicians and, of course, everybody else in the world.
Oh, yeah, and the only good thing about that is a lot of people, because of all the lockdowns and stuff, as I'm sure you can attest to, have had time to record, well, at least I'll spend some time recording some new stuff, working on new music, so I guess that's what you've been doing as well.
Well, yes, that's absolutely, and it does give you some of that time. The fortunate thing for this, we did this we started this album about 18 months ago, something like that. So we had gone to Miami and we recorded this album live. This is basically like keyboards, drums, bass, guitar, scratch vocal recorded live. And
so when you say live, that's like the old school way where you guys are all in the same room together?
We're in the same room together. We counted the songs off and we played them through. And it was amazing. It was really such a great experience because everybody records remotely. And of course, with COVID, everybody does it remotely because you had no choice. And so we got in under the wire, and we were really fortunate to do so. And I've been recording remotely for about 12 years.
Yeah.
I have my little studio here with my drums and my studio monitors and whatever. And so I just record at home. But getting together, it was like a new thing. It was like I'd forgotten what that was like.
Yeah.
We were in the studio playing together, and we'd run the song down, and there was a writing session in Atlanta, which I wasn't able to make because of a little shoulder injury, like a muscle thing. And you know how when you have like muscle thing, sometimes you just can't get comfortable. And I couldn't. I was up all night.
Wow.
Actually, been a couple days, and I just couldn't get on the flight. Like 3 a.m.
Wow.
I was just like, haven't had sleep. I can't get on the plane, which was actually a good thing because Jim and Rhett worked on the material in Atlanta with Bob, and so I wasn't really involved in it. It was probably good. I didn't have my little fingers in the pie.
Yeah.
And so when we got together in Miami in the studio, we kind of run the songs down for me. If I had any little suggestions to make an arrangement or a feel, we would make it, and then we would run the song down, and we did like 2 takes, maybe 3 takes the most. But that's why this album, I think, has a certain vibe, a certain feel, because there's an urgency, there's just something about playing live. And when I listen back to it, I think, wow, Bob and I as a rhythm section, we did a really good job for playing live, at least because I haven't done it in so long. It's hard for me to remember what it's like, but it was fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, I'm aging maybe myself and you, but I know you've been in the music business very, a real long time and played on a lot of albums. And I know when I was growing up, that's the way they used to do it, man. And maybe people don't think so, but I can kind of tell, when you listen to those classic albums that were made like that, I mean, there's like a different sound to it, You can just tell that the band's all in the same room.
There is. I mean, those early recordings, the early rock recordings in the 50s, and, those things were done in the same room with everybody, and there was bleed, and but there's something magical that happen when musicians get together and play, and that's the way it's always been. So it's not to say that you can't do a great.
Oh, of course not. Yeah. I'm just saying,
there's some great music coming out, but there is something about to be said knowing that you have to play it through. Everybody's counting on you to get through that take. You're all working together for the same end goal, and you're playing together. You're interacting. And because when you record remotely, what happens is you get to pick your parts apart. And sometimes you labor over them, and sometimes you make them better, and a lot of times you suck the life out of them.
Yeah, now you're a musician, a drummer, and everything, and people know you're also a producer. And I was curious, as a producer, what do you think about when using stuff like Pro Tools and that versus, like you're saying, doing a live recording in the studio?
I love DAWs. I love being able to work on digital audio workstations. I love that. I also think there's something to be said for going in and recording on tape, which is expensive to do. But some bands love to do that. If the band is a vibey kind of band where they've got a cool groove and the magic happens when they play together, and you get them in the room and you get everybody warmed up and everybody ready to go. There's something to be said for that as well. So, it's a different animal, and it's, whatever works best for you. If it's a young band and that's how they've been working and they have a great sound when they do it, then best thing to do is record them live, and if they're seasoned pros and they have a lot of parts and they need to interweave these parts and, they need it precise, then of course, Pro Tools offers you the option to really work on things and get your music across in a very precise
and so the 450's, I mean, are these the other guys in the band, are these guys you've known for a while, or was this an existing band and you joined up with them?
No, Rhett, the singer, was the singer in Young Turk.
Oh, okay.
So I managed and produced Rhett. And when he was 19, he cajoled me into coming. I was working with Rock's Gang, and I had just finished Love 'Em and Leave 'Em in Tampa.
Oh, wow.
And I had been there working with them for a few months, and so Rhett had contacted me, and he would cajole me to stop down when you're going back. Just fly down here to Miami and meet me in Miami. Meet me in Miami. I'm like, this kid, give me a break. And I want to go home. Yeah. But he kept on me, and so I flew to Miami instead of going directly home. And that was the start of a long-term friendship and a relationship. I have nothing but great respect for Rhett. Yeah. He's a really brilliant musician, in my opinion. And
I can hear that in the. I saw the video for the song. I think it's called "Lust and Denial," and and I haven't heard anything else. But I will tell you, I was digging the track in the video, and I was trying to think, what does this remind me of? And honestly, I can say, just based on the one video and the song I've heard so far, there's like a real fresh original sound. I can't really say, they sound like Metallica, or they sound like this band or that band. I mean, it seems that the band has kind of at least based on that one track, kind of a fresh sound, something different.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's nice to hear. I think Rhett he's an artiste.
Yeah.
And so Jim and Bob, I had worked with Jim and Bob in St. James, and I became the de facto drummer for them because every time we went in to record an album or a demo, something would happen with their drummer. The one time the drummer was watching TV while he was trying to record tracks and calling his mom to place bets. So they were like, okay, go home. Another time the drummer was getting ready to play his parts, and he came down with the worst flu.
Wow.
And then gave it to me, so he had to go home. And then I wound up playing, and the guys they mention it to me every now and then. We talk about it, how I was lying under the console between takes because I was so sick with the flu. I remember driving to the hospital emergency room, and I remember the nurse going, "Honey, you're really sick."
Yeah, you think so? Yeah.
Had a high fever and just a mess. But anyway, so that's how it's been with these guys, and I've known them a long time. And then, of course, from my working with the bands, excuse me, they've all become friends. So we've all been friends for years and years, and so it was like we always wanted to work together. So we decided to let's start a band, let's record an album.
And so
we're already making plans for the next album.
Okay, and so that's my next question. Like, what with all the current stuff going on with COVID, do you guys have any plans to do any live shows, or are you just kind of moving on to the next album already, like you said?
We want to. We'd love to do like when springtime. COVID's shut it down for now, but we would love to go to Europe, and we would love to do dates in the States, at least the East Coast and West Coast. And we, the way things are now, we just have to see it. Are things going to open up, or are they going to, shut down again?
We just don't know. The cool thing about that kind of plan is, maybe by the time spring comes and and you're getting ready to release a second album, at that point you'll at least have 2 albums worth of material to get out there if you're able to go and do some shows, and that'll be a lot better than just having one album worth of material to do.
Absolutely. And I think we all want to play. I mean, having played them live in the studio, going out and performing these songs live, we're all dying to do that.
I bet. And talk about being, you talk about being a seasoned musician, I mean, you're a little older than the other guys, I imagine. So what's that like when you're playing with these guys that are younger than you, and they're kind of looking up to you because you've been the guy that's, been in the biz for all these years?
Yeah, no, I'm hearing a lot of old from you tonight.
Well, I could even say,
Just kidding.
No.
And listen, they don't look up to me so much as they help me up.
Yeah.
They'll see me trying to get out of a chair or something. They'll come over. Oh, come on, let's help Carl up. But no, these guys, we have a great mutual respect.
Yeah, yeah.
All of us, and that's been because we've known each other and worked with each other, and for so many years. So honestly, it's just a very comfortable situation. I suppose in some ways they may defer to me, but in all honesty, they're all strong musicians in their own way.
Oh yeah,
so it's
yeah.
not like,
I'm not saying that. I guess what I'm saying is, like, even me, I've interviewed you several times, as you recall, Carl, over the years, you're one of those musicians I've interviewed. Like I said, you've been in the business. You could even be referred to maybe as a legend. You know, you played with the Roz and you do all these other projects on the side. So I guess that's what I mean. Is maybe you're the guy that's kind of been doing it a long time.
I was busting it. It's really.
Yeah.
It's just that I think it's I'm the elder statesman.
That's a better way of putting it, because I think what's interesting is over maybe the last 10 or 15 years, I don't know if you agree with this, but for several years, you were known simply as the drummer from the Rods, but now you've got all these other projects that you've been involved with over the years, and you're known for a lot more than just that.
I think what happened was, I noticed when I released my solo album, Headbanger, before this new Canedy album, which is a band, and that's a band that I joined. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's Canedy, you have your own band."
Yeah.
Not really. These guys were working together. I joined them, and then we decided to call it Canedy. But anyway, once I released Headbanger, suddenly I did a ton of interviews, and I got great press. I'm really grateful about that. Very positive. But suddenly the two pieces of my career
come together,
were then connected. And at that point, people went, "Oh, we've known him as a producer. We didn't know about this other. We know he's the first drummer in Manowar. We didn't, always with the Rods. And we didn't know he produced all these albums." And so now, I think finally that
you've been doing it long enough, it's coming together. Yeah, makes sense. And that's all I meant. But the other thing it's interesting about. You have the other band, Canedy, you're mentioning. I think probably the only other drummer that ever had any kind of really a solo deal like that is Carmine Appice. He was telling me when I interviewed him, he said, he's getting ready to release this album, Guitar Zeus. It's the 25th anniversary of that. He says, I'm a drummer, and he says, in order for me to get a solo deal, I had to go come up with this project, this album deal with all these guitar players. But he goes, that's how I got a solo deal,
Carmine's brilliant, and I was fortunate enough to study with Carmine when I was 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
And it changed my life. Studying with him and studying with Tony Williams, but Carmine was, first of all, he was my idol.
Yeah, of course.
And I loved his album. I loved his drumming and his parts, and I've stolen so much from Carmine.
Who hasn't, though?
But by the same token, he taught me so much, and he was such a great teacher and educator, because when I first got to him, I had taken lessons from a guy early on who told me I sucked, I would never be good. And so I stopped after a while. Even as slow as I can be, I was like, okay, no more money for this guy. But then I taught myself. So I was self-taught until I got to Carmine.
Yeah.
And then when I got to Carmine, he would say things like, it was a very positive experience.
Motivational,
say, It was motivational. And he would say, that's technically wrong, but it's cool, so keep it. But this you can do this way, and it's going to be, less exertion. You're going to get more control. And so that's how he handled it. And it was great, because it made me feel good about, not everything I was doing was horrible.
Yeah.
And it was, and then I learned.
It's funny. It's funny the difference, one person can make. I would love to hear what that guy who told you suck is doing now. And I dare to say you've even probably had a better career than him. Look at all the albums you made, and look at all the bands you've been in, and stuff, and all the albums you produced. So, and Carmine, it's interesting. I was joking with him. Carmine, you hear people talking all the time about, how John Bonham influenced. Carmine is the guy that influenced John Bonham. Just think about that. That's how far back that guy goes.
Yeah, I think. Excuse me.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Take your time. Yeah. You need to take a sip of water? Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
I had eaten a dry granola bar earlier.
Yeah.
And apparently there's something stuck in my throat.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I was going to say about Carmine. Let me take another sip of water.
Sure.
Carmine, I think my theory on Carmine is that he is such a legend.
Oh, yeah.
But Carmine has been in so many diverse bands over such a long period of time. John Bonham had this great run with Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Then he died.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, even Carmine, like you talk about his career, I mean, he probably the best thing he's known for is Vanilla Fudge, but he's also in, he also played with Rod Stewart, Ozzy Osbourne, King Cobra, Blue Murder. Yeah.
Right, Blue Murder's great. He's played with so many great bands and done so many great recordings. But I think that it's, again, like I was saying about my career, where people didn't put it together, because Carmine is a legend. I think he's getting his due now. But I think that Carmine's truly like a living legend.
I mean, the last thing I'll say about
props for his career. It's been amazing, and he's been a rock star. On top of that, he was one of the first visual acts, a true rock star as a drummer.
Yeah.
And he was kind of like Gene Krupa was,
Oh, that's the guy that influenced him, he told me. Yeah, Gene Krupa. I mean, you can go on YouTube and anybody type in Gene Krupa, you'll be amazed at what comes up. But, Carmine, too, I mean, he's literally the guy who wrote the book, I mean, on how to drum. And he was telling me his concept with the drums has always kind of been bringing the drums out to the front. He said, you watch any band and the drummer, you got two type of drummers. One that kind of just sits back there and does his thing, and guys that do like what you and him do, and just real physical players, and put on a show. And that's the difference between guys like you and Carmine and guys that just sit in the back of the stage and keep time.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And Carmine was the first rock drummer like that, and huge impact on me. But I think a lot of drummers.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt, yeah.
I just think that Carmine will I think he'll be more recognized as time goes on, but, even though John Bonham is this big legend, I think Carmine will become that big legend as well.
I think he's already reached that level, so, he's also reached that level in life where he can pretty much do whatever he wants to do, which is kind of a cool place to be now. You mentioned that you worked with the band Rox Gang back in the day. I remember them. How did you first hook up with them? If you don't mind talking a little bit about that.
Rox Gang was a case of, I was contacted by Brett Steele, their manager, and talked to me about coming in to record the band. And right before I came in, their original guitarist died mysteriously.
Oh, wow.
Whether it was a bad drug deal or someone murdered him.
Wow.
Yeah, it was some bizarre thing. But decided to carry on, and I flew down and started working with them. And we wound up recording the demo Love Them and Leave Them, and we shot it.
I remember
they got a deal.
I remember they used to release their stuff on Paris Records, and I remember the singer Kevin Steele, and they had their moment in the sun, and they should have been maybe a little bigger, but they weren't. I'd love to know what he's doing now, but that's kind of like when people hear that you produce that, they might be taken back because they're like, oh, that's not really, that's more of a glam metal band. So what did you think of them? When you were working with them?
I loved the band.
Yeah.
I thought
great songs,
I thought Kevin was a star. Kevin didn't have a great voice, but I tried to.
For what they did, what he did, he could make it work. Kind of like David Lee Roth, not the world's greatest singer, but for what he did with Van Halen, it worked. Yeah.
No, he's great. I love David Lee Roth in the early days. But what I did with Kevin was I arranged the songs for his strengths and not his weaknesses. And so that's what I did. I arranged all the material to really split. Kevin's a super talented guy, and and I agree they should have been bigger than they were.
And another band I know you produced was Anthrax, and Anthrax this year is celebrating their 40th anniversary. Can you believe they've been around that long?
I do. I do, because from day one, these guys were driven, and they were incredible musicians, and they just had their eye on the ball. They've never taken their eye off the ball. They work hard, and they know what Anthrax is all about.
Yeah.
And I think having Joey, and this is no disrespect to John Bush or anyone, but Joey is the voice for Anthrax for me.
Yeah.
And so getting Joey back into the fold to me has re-energized the band.
When you produced them, was Neil Turbin the singer, or was Joey in the band by that point?
No, Neil was Dan Lilker was the playing bass.
Yes.
First album. Neil was the singer.
Oh.
And so, and then when it came time for the second album, the singer they had, and I won't mention his name. I mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Okay. Matt was just young, he was partying, and so at the end of the first week, I just said to the guys, he's not going to get you to a major label, which was our goal at the time. And so they wound up saying they said, call Johnny, and I told Johnny, and Johnny said, put them on the phone. They went in the conference room, and it was as simple as that. They came out and said, John wants to talk to you. And I picked up the phone. I said, yeah, John, what's up? And he goes, put him on a bus, and he hung up. Yeah. And that was it. So that's how, and then I wound up finding Joey for them through my friend Andrew Duff McDonald. Oh,
wow. Just think about that. And that's pretty amazing right there in itself. I mean, and I was curious, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard you also produced an album for Blue Cheer, is that correct?
Yes, The Beast is Back.
And what year was that, or about, was that in the 80s?
Mid-80s, 86.
And what was that experience like? Because they were one of those bands that kind of, I guess you'd consider them a legendary band, a bit much bigger.
That band was, up until then, I started playing drums. I finally got drums when I was 13, so I was off and running. But, I would watch Ed Sullivan to catch glimpses of drummers, and I would watch American Bandstand.
Wow.
So I watched American Bandstand one day, and I suddenly, and I remember I was watching these teeny bopper bands, and drummers tick tock in the background, and suddenly I see this band, long hair, blowing my speakers out of my little TV, doing Summertime Blues.
Yeah.
Right, and I went, yes, that's what I want to do.
In fact, people think that's a Who song. No, that they covered it. Blue Cheer is the one that originally did it, though.
Actually, it was an Eddie Cochran song.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
Blue Cheer copy. Right, they covered it from the 50s. And
here's a man educating me. That's good.
60s.
Wow. Yeah.
So, but anyway, that was life changing. One of those moments for you, and I was joke about how I should have charged them for all the sticks and cymbals that I broke because of playing like Paul Whaley, because watching him smash his drum kit. Yeah. But working with them was really great, and watching Paul, Dickey's a legend, and it's, both he and Paul,
sure,
gone now. It's just a shame, but Dickey was amazing because he had that Janis Joplin kind of voice, and his bass playing was so rock solid. So working with him was great because his parts were down. He didn't even need a compressor on his bass because he was so consistent. And the same with his voice. He knew what he was doing, and he did it perfectly. Paul, it was interesting to watch as a drummer and producer, was to watch him work out parts and how that creative mind works. They play the style he had and how he thought about things. Because sometimes he played things that were kind of upside down from what a typical drummer would play. Yeah. So it was brilliant, to see that such creativity from him.
Wow. And we talked tonight about all your years in the music business. I was curious, because I know a common thing among drummers is they suffer oftentimes from carpal tunnel. Do you ever suffer? Have you ever been affected by that?
No.
And what do you think it is that you've been able to not be affected by that? Just you stay in shape, or what?
I think it's a case of, I think as a drummer you have to have a certain level of
expertise.
Fitness.
Yeah.
But no, what it was for me, I think, was Carmine really helped to learn how to play powerfully without smashing things. And then the best thing that happened to me was I was living in Massachusetts, and I went to see Billy Cobham at a small club, and I literally sat for both shows, sat in front of him, right in the center of his drums. Wow. And I was 3 feet from his kit for both shows. And I learned so much. I learned how to dance out of drum heads with a cigarette from his drum tech. Wow. He was using tension rods that were not T-rods on the bass drum. So you had a hand drill, his drum tech, and he would change the heads by literally just using a crank I use electric screwdriver.
That's amazing.
But he would take the heads off. I had never seen that. And the same with the bass drum. He would take the head off. And everything was T-rods. Now this guy could just take them off because he was using regular tension rods. So I watched him play, and he played with his French grip, which was a snap kind of thing.
Wow.
And from that day on, I've never broken a cymbal, never cracked a cymbal. I don't bent my drum heads. And yet, you could ask any of the players that worked with any of the musicians. None of them will tell you that I need to turn up.
Yeah. Now, you're such a physical player. I was curious, have you ever broken any drumsticks? I'm sure you have.
Sometimes they crack,
Yeah.
But overall, no. I mean, I chew them up and then I just replace them. But overall, I don't really break drumsticks.
And do you like to throw your sticks out to the crowd, like when you're playing a big show?
I would love to. But the first show we played with Blue Oyster Cult was at the Broome County Arena, and I was so excited. It was like my first show. It was so fantastic. And so I took my sticks at the end of the show and I throw them out into the crowd like I was a big rock star. It was like first gig. I thought it was so great though. Like I'd seen drummers do it so many times, and I come off stage and I hear, "Don't ever do that again. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen."
Amazing! Wow! Who would have thought that?
And I was like crushed. I was like, "Oh my God!" So for now, I go to the front of the stage and I underhand them off to people.
Yeah, I got to ask. You mentioned Blue Oyster Cult. Would you happen to know Albert Bouchard? He's another one of my all-time favorite drummers.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, I interviewed him recently. I actually had a chance to interview him twice over the last year, and super cool guy, super talented. I mean, he's known as a drummer, but he's also a singer, a songwriter. He wrote a lot of all those Blue Oyster Cult tunes we grew up on, and super talented guy. And then he put out like a solo album recently, but that's what I was talking to him about. And not only does he do all the lead singing, he's like, I'm the guitar player. In fact, when I go do live shows, I gotta have a drummer. Super cool guy, super talented. What just amazes me about him, talking to him, he's just so full of energy. But it's like, man, when he mentions, oh, by the way, I'm 74 years old, I'm like, oh, man, you seem like a guy half your age,
Yeah. No, he's very active. It's great to see that because, as I start creeping up on...
well, you're still doing it, so you're doing something right, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's good to see. I think Monty Connor said to me, a few years ago, we were walking down the street in New York City and talking about the Stones, and he goes, it's just a new day because it's all unwritten now.
Well,
how long people can perform is how well what your health is like and whatever, as long as you want to do it and you have a passion for it.
I think the Stones, are a perfect example. I mean, sadly, Charlie recently passed, but they're still carrying on without him, and I think the rest of the guys are going to...
Which is great.
Yeah, I think the other guys, are going to literally do it till they die. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just it,
Yeah.
I know that my daughter's fiance, we were sitting eating dinner and he said, so when do you think you'll retire? And my daughter, eating, doesn't look up and stops and says, never. Goes back to eating. It is. I mean, as long as you can make music and you're creative and you've got something to offer, or maybe just feel you have something to offer, but as long as you're enjoying yourself and you're being productive.
Yeah, and before we wrap it up, Carl, one thing I got to mention is another guy interviewed the other day, last week, was Tom Collier from the band Held Hostage, and he dropped your name and happened to mention, I think, that you've played with him before live. Talk a little bit about that.
I had met Tom. He's such a nice guy, and I produced the Show Me the Way Back Home for him with Joe Lynn Turner.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then they were doing a date in opening for Metal Allegiance, so they asked me to be the guest drummer. So I went out to Anaheim and did the show with him. Of
course, he's a lead singer of Held Hostage, and he was telling me that like on their new album that they're getting ready to put out, they've got Tim Ripper Owens. He's doing a lot of the vocals, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, and
Tim's great. Yeah. Did that whole Dio Disciples tour with Tim, and he's a really good guy. Great singer.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that the surviving Dio members could go out there without Ronnie? I mean, what I love about it, because I seen that show in Anaheim at Disneyland, and they had Oni Logan and Tim from Lynch Mob and Tim Owens, doing the vocals, and I tell you, the band and the fans were like one. It was like electric church, and all those guys. Of course, they're doing it, to make a living, but they're doing it in memory of Ronnie, and that's kind of what I loved about it. I'd never seen anything like it. It was just such a wonderful experience.
And you saw this with the singers, or did you see it as
Well, no, I saw it with the other Dio members, the surviving band members, and then Tim Owens and Oni.
With Tim and Oni. Okay, yeah. Great.
Yeah. But it was just a great
absolutely.
experience, and I never see anything like that. And again, I think the reason it works is because these guys that are were in Ronnie's band, they're still playing these songs out of love for Ronnie. It's not because they're trying to make a buck off of Ronnie's death. They're doing it literally out of a love for the guy.
No, they loved Ronnie, and Ronnie, it's really just was, everybody loved Ronnie because of who he was. He was just such a great guy, and like I always say, for me, he came and sang 2 songs for the Rods, and one of them was a song I wrote, The Code, and it couldn't have been just nicer, kinder.
In fact, if I remember, right before Ronnie died, on one of the Rods albums, he'd record one of the final things he'd ever recorded that appeared on one of your albums, right?
That's right, The Code, the song I wrote, which so it was a huge honor for me that he even sang a song that I had written. And he also sang Metal Will Never Die, which was on David's solo album, Bitten by the Beast. And so it was a huge honor to work with him. But like I said, for Ronnie to sing a song that I wrote, it's a career highlight for me.
I was curious.
Everybody loved Ronnie.
Everybody
loved him.
I was curious over the years, being that him and David were cousins and family. Did you guys ever do any shows with Dio?
We never did.
Amazing, huh? yeah.
It is.
That's and speaking of the Rods, anything new going on with the Rods?
Well, there is. I'm in the middle of recording. We have tracks down now. We're on a 7th track, and I just have to put some drum tracks down on those. And I have, and the same with Canedy. Canedy has a new album that we're working on that I'm really proud of. So I think we're going to see albums by Canedy and new Rods album, and my band Colacus from the mid-'70s, we're almost done with a complete album, original members. So.
Oh, wow. Now, for that, like all these projects, like if people want to find out more about it, like do you have a website for all your stuff that people can check out?
I mean, they can go to CanedyBand.com, they can go to the450's.com.
Okay, and it'll be there.
And they can go to therods.com, and probably the best thing is just to go to Facebook, Carl Canedy, and find everything there. And then, of course, you can even message me if you're looking for something specific.
Yeah, and now those releases, I'm assuming, will come out sometime next year.
That's the hope, yes.
Yeah, and with all these projects, Carl, does it make it hard, like when you're planning to release something, like you don't want everything coming out all at once, I imagine?
No, I mean, it has not been a problem, and I've been doing stuff for Angels of Dresden with Brad Sinsel and Mike McCready's done a couple of projects I've been playing on, and that stuff is fun to do, but it's not. You hope that the projects don't overlap. Yeah. But you just do your best. I mean, it's not like anybody goes on for. Nobody does a year-long tour anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a good
for periods of time.
I guess it's a good problem to have. I got too many new albums to release, as opposed to having nothing to do.
Well, no, that's right. It is. If you're going to have a problem, that's probably a good one to have.
Yeah, and the 450's, I love the name of the band. Kind of, how did you guys come up with it? I ask again because I know that's one of the hardest things.
I think Red came up with that. Red came up with that, and I don't know what.
I'll tell you the cool.
We're all like, okay.
The cool thing.
Like good name.
The cool thing about that is, I tell you, I put it in, like, I did a Facebook search, came up right away. A lot of times with some of these band names, you got to be real specific. I mean, I interviewed one of the guys from the band Hemlock. I put in Hemlock, and you'd never guess all the stuff that comes up. You got to put like a rock band, Hemlock or whatever. Another guy has a tribute band he calls Farmer Bob. Type in Farmer Bob, you'd be amazed all the crap that comes up. It's just amazing. Yeah.
So the 450's is at least unique enough so that you don't have a lot of filtering to do. Yeah,
and so the current single and video that people can check out, which I really urge they do, because it's something to really give you something to look forward to November 19th when the whole album comes out. But as far as the release date, on the November 19th release date, will people be able to get order physical CDs as well?
Order physical CDs, order vinyl as well.
Cool.
Yeah, and the one thing that I think is important for people who support me, support the band, to know is that if you can't support with money, because look, we all know it's tight.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's extremely tight. So, but if you can't, then you can always support the bands. And it's not like Spotify pays a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you can add us to a Spotify playlist. Either create a Spotify playlist or add us to an existing one or several Spotify playlists.
And what does that do for the band? I mean, does it just does it help with revenue in that?
It generates some revenue, and it's pennies. But
hey,
pennies. If everybody goes out and does something on Spotify and adds us to a Spotify playlist, pretty soon the pennies add up, and it's a way to support. So if you don't have cash, go to 450's.com and or go to Spotify, go to 450's and add us to a playlist, or Canedy or the Rods or whatever band.
Yeah, because before wrapping up, I will say this: I'm an old school guy, as I've shared many times before. Meaning, I still love to have physical CDs and that. It kind of bothered me sometimes when people, I'm not going to even buy the whole album. I just get the latest single for 99 cents.
Mm-hmm.
You're really not supporting your bands, And I mean, people, I don't think they know what it was like, when you and I were growing up, Carl. You used to be able to go to a record store and what's a record store? Be able to spend all day in there and look at the album covers.
I just went to the lake the other day.
Yeah.
And I went upstairs. And I cannot believe that's where all my albums are. I cannot believe how many albums I have.
Yeah.
But I remember first buying them, they were like $2.99
to
buy a whole album. But then look what happened. You wound up with CDs like $16.99, and they sucked. You get a couple of good songs. And, that was the problem. The prices just got really crazy, and after a while, who can afford it?
Well, somebody was sharing me recently that the fact that vinyl's making a comeback is actually kind of a good thing for some of the bands, because the bands are able to release their stuff on vinyl. They have to, because you can't go and buy the vinyl everywhere like you used to. They're charging like $20 or $30 per record, and a lot of times they're making the packaging really nice, maybe putting it on like a double gatefold thing or something. And
they are. If you look at the High Roller has just released the Rods catalog, and man, they have done an incredible job. Color vinyl, black vinyl, heavy grams, and beautiful inserts and posters. Done an incredible job on it, So you're getting a value for that,
Well, I know it's getting late where you are, Carl, so I will let you go. But I want to thank you once again for taking time out of your schedule to speak to me. I always enjoy talking to you. Anytime you have anything new drop, be sure to let me know, and I'd be sure to spread the word, and we can do a brand new interview. Talk it up.
Thanks so much for the support, Jason. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. And the interview we just did will be going up about 2 or 3 weeks from now. I will be sure to let you know the minute it gets posted. So thanks for doing this today. I really appreciate it. Take care, my friend.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.